I'm Tim McGarry, founder of Epoxy Floor & Co. And today I want to have a chat to you about one of the keys to epoxy success. And it's not a very sexy topic, but it is an absolute crucial one. If you're ever thinking of doing a floor yourself, or if you want us to come and do it or someone else to come and do it, what you need to look for in a contractor to make sure they know what they're talking about and they're going to put a floor down that's going to stay there for a very, very, very long time. So what's that success? What's the secret? Preparation work. Ooh, boring, I hear you say. Don't blame you. Epoxy, honestly, is, in our job, 98% prep work during the day. Probably 95% of that time is taken up grinding the floor. So why do we grind the floor? What's the big deal for us in doing this? Because grinding the floor does a few things. It removes surface contaminants. When we take our grinders to the floor, we'll remove the top layer of concrete. And we do that because we want to get down inside that and have a look and see if there's any potential contaminants hiding away underneath that could cause problems when a coating gets put on top. There's a thing called latents. So the latents, why do we want to get rid of that? It's just the garbage type of concrete. You want to profile it to a certain specification. And when you profile it to a certain specification, that actually increases the surface area of the concrete. That's a really good thing. We'll talk about that in a minute too. I think it's probably pretty straightforward about why you want to remove contaminants. Putting a coating on top of oil or paint is not a good idea because you can't trust that the epoxy will get through the coating and grip into the concrete and stay there. So we want to clean it all up and make it look as nice as we can. Let's have a talk about this latent stuff though. Let's imagine that the concreters pour themselves a slab. It's 100 mils thick. And in the middle of the concrete, they have their steel reinforcing, or mesh, or Rio. They put that in there because that makes the concrete stronger. Good idea. They then chuck a whole lot of stones in, called aggregate or stones. Same thing. Aggregate's a fancy name. FYI, in case you didn't know, when you have an exposed aggregate driveway, and they're so common in our country, the concreters pour all this, and then they put a special chemical on the top of the concrete. They come and put a blasting pressure washer over the top, and that exposes those bits of aggregate or stone. And that is how you make an exposed aggregate driveway. All of this, as you can imagine here, where my stone and Rio is, super, super strong. That's a fantastic thing. Up the top though, where the guys have been working it with their trowels, they've had the choppers on it, looks amazing. All that cement, think like fine powder, a bit like talcum powder, that's come to the top and it sits there and the boys work it and it gets really hard, looks great, hopefully pretty nice and level. But if I want to put a coating on it, then I'm going to put a car tire on top of that, and that car tire could have hundreds of kilos sitting on top of it. That's a lot of pressure sitting on this floor. If there's a weakness in that system, something's going to give, and you can have a thing called substrate failure. The coating, this top coating, actually getting ripped apart under the pressure of a car tire. One of the things you do though, to try to avoid this, is remove this top layer of latent, because there's nothing structural sitting up the top here. There's no stones and there's no Rio. So what we do is we come along and we take off that top layer. That's not quite scale, but remove the top layer because I want to get rid of all that creamy cement stuff. And you can see in the footage just how powdery it is when we put a grinder through it and what it looks like after we've ground it. So it looks nice before we grind it. We quickly get through it, we remove all that garbage, pasty latents off the top and get down to the better quality stuff where all this lives, where the Rio and the steel hang out. So you can imagine in concrete, the strongest part right in the middle there, where all the steel and where all the stone is. Up the top, not so good. So we take off that latents, get down to the better quality stuff. It gives us a much better chance of getting epoxy that's going to stick to it and stay there forever. Now, when you get the concrete ground off and you have all the latents off, what you're then looking to do is profile it to a certain specification. That's the surface area from that point there to that point there, on this little picture anyway, of my concrete slab. So the epoxy can sit on top of that. That's good, but imagine if I have more surface area. That gives more space for the epoxy to grip onto, which means when it's under load, such as a car tyre being on top of it, it's got a better chance of staying there. So when we grind your floor, we are increasing the surface area of the job. So all of these bits down here, I've increased the surface area. That means epoxy sticks onto it, better chance of staying there permanently. And it means that when I put epoxy on it, I then have a surface that is clean, so there's no contaminants in it, that has been profiled. I've increased the surface area, and we have so much better chance of the epoxy getting down into it and obtaining a mechanical chemical bond with the substrate. So it's just going to stay there for a super, super, super long time. Now, I've got a little example here of, this is actually one of our display boards, and it's a great example of what can happen if the substrate and the epoxy don't really like each other. So this is called delamination. That's what literally can happen to your floor. I put footage up before of going into places and finding prep work not being done properly and the whole floor delaminating. Now, here's an interesting part on this, little twist on this story. If my camera can see this, there's actually striations everywhere through this. You can see it's all scratched up. That was me actually getting a diamond encrusted resin based pad on an orbital sander and going through that to scratch it all up. Then I put acetone on it to clean it all up and to open up the acrylic a bit. It still didn't work. So the product has delaminated off it. Thankfully, we don't put epoxy on acrylic very often. We do it on concrete every day and multiple times a day. And when we run our grinders through it and we clean it all up, it bonds like nothing. But if you don't get your preparation right, you can fully expect your coating will delaminate. So there you go. Basically, when we wake up in the morning in work, all the way through until we pretty much go to bed, what are we thinking about? Preparation work, because we specialize in speed and strength. We work with exothermic composite epoxies, which means the products that we install get installed super quickly. If we are doing an average size double garage and it's the height of summer, we would probably get on site at 7 o'clock, go through the process of doing a final measure, moisture testing, all the protocols we run through to make sure that the job's going to be a success. We'll start grinding. If we have the coating ready to go by about lunchtime, we're having a good day. So that means we're hours and hours and hours grinding concrete, patching concrete, getting it all ready for the coating. And then when we put the coating down in summer, we have 12 minutes. That's right, 12 minutes to get the job finished. That is because exothermic composite epoxies are crazy, crazy strong, but they are crazy, crazy fast to cure. So you have to go like wildfire. If you're looking to get an epoxy floor done by a contractor, or you're looking to do it yourself, absolute golden rule is make sure they do a proper grind on the concrete. You can do it yourself. Go down to your local hire yard, such as Kennards in Australia. You can hire a vacuum, you can hire a grinder. You spend half a day getting it done. You'll thank me for the tip, because your coating has got a substantially better chance of staying there for years and years and years and years and years. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.